With my 35 years of experience, our team at US Asset Management can deliver professional investment management, financial planning to help you target your goals, and even specialized divorce financial analysis if you need it. We are here to help you make better decisions with your money. Call US Asset Management today and let's get to work in your financial future. Do you already have your investments with Fidelity? I'm David Cross with US Asset Management. Did you know that you can assign your investment management to my team and put my 35 years of experience to work for you? You simply assign us as your investment manager and you keep the same username and password. Professional management, and you get to work with someone who shares your values. Call US Asset Management today and put us to work for you.
What happens in Georgia gets revealed one by one as the facts are unsealed. From the pit comes what they don't want you to see. When the daily nugget of truth is dropped with your host, BKP.
And we're back. Yes, I'm your host, BKP, and you're watching BKP Politics on voiceofruralamerica.com. How are you today? I'm doing great. It's Monday. It's Monday, right? And we're about to close out June 2026. And this is what begins what people are calling 250-year celebration week. United States of America's birthday, 250 years. And it is a celebration week. There's a lot of, I want to tell you, I really enjoyed all the Facebook posts yesterday on a Sunday of patriotic services. Many worship services yesterday were very patriotic, and many of you posted your pictures, and I just really enjoyed that. It was let me see if I can get, I think my volume needs to come up a little bit, but anyhow, I noticed yesterday a lot of patriotic services, and so I got to thinking, like, how many of you in this audience, and if it's going to be the kind of show, and we are going to talk politics, all right, we don't want to leave the opportunity for people to disagree with me. We never want you to lose that opportunity to disagree with me or debate or whatever, but I absolutely love that. Okay. And so that being said, how many of you were there in 1776? No one. No one. No one was there. But how many in this audience remembers 1976? How many of you remember 1976? And where we're at 50 years later, 2026. So were you there in 1976? And, you know, I want to talk about that a little bit today and the 250 years. And again, we are going to talk politics. But yesterday, I was determined that it was a no politics day. Yesterday was a no politics day. I wanted to reflect. We're going into this week, 250 years. This great country. I mean, what an amazing country. To me, greatest on the face of the earth. Still today, greatest on the face of the earth. So I went out and I cut the grass, and this is these are my pooches, just really quick, because I thought a little bit today. You know, you could. Who is this guy I've been accused of yelling at the microphone, or this guy in North Georgia that just, you know, yells and carries on, or whatever you want to call it. but there's a little depth to me, and we want to talk about that a little bit today. But I like my dogs. I really do. I like my dogs. So my dogs, when I cut the grass, my dogs sit on the hill and they never leave. They sit right there and they watch me cut the grass. And going to the far side, the largest dog to the far right, that's Stella Lou. In the middle, relaxing. She's always relaxing. In the middle is Bella Boo. And the little tiny guy over there on the corner, that's Charlie Chu. So yesterday, I wanted to reflect. And this morning, I watched, and I didn't really want to come here today and do what I think is the ugly side of politics. I don't enjoy that. I analyze the races. I analyze the governor's race here in Georgia. I analyze all the races here. And let me say before I go any further this morning, any further today, whenever this publishes, I will vote for Rick Jackson for governor. Now, I went yesterday and I wanted to reflect all day long. When I say it was a no politics kind of day, I don't want anybody to wonder as we continue to cover the races, where these candidates stand, some of the things that I see concerning each candidate. Um, I will vote for Rick Jackson. I will vote for the Republican nominee. I want that very clear. And I want you to mark this day on your calendar and we can go back to it, because anytime as I follow the race and I make comments maybe about the nominee or the candidates, I will not in any way waver. There'll be no confusion, nothing at all. I will not vote for Keisha Lance Bottoms. No, Keisha Lance Bottoms cannot be the governor of Georgia. So that's number one. Number two, I hear a lot of rumbling around this one. I will vote for Tim Fleming for Secretary of State. Penny Brown, the Democrat nominee, absolutely not. I've encouraged you to go. Maybe I shouldn't use the word encourage, but I think you should go and watch the Democrat Secretary of Debate runoff debate with Penny Brown, and it's pretty clear. So no matter where you're at, I will be voting for Tim Fleming, and we will have to get out the vote and Rick Jackson. Now, today, like I said, I didn't want to do the ugly side, what I call the ugly side of politics. Last week, Martha Zoller, and I got to thinking about this. I really got to reflecting yesterday as I was riding around on the mower, 250 years. And were you there in 1976? And what about Saturday, this coming Saturday? 250 years. Martha died unexpectedly last week, as you all know, Martha Zoller. And if you're in Georgia politics, you know Martha. She was very involved. She ran for Congress. All right. Martha ran for Congress in 2012 against then Doug Collins. Doug Collins was a state senator, and you know him as the VA secretary. Look at how fast things change. He is now the VA secretary for the Trump administration. And she ran for Congress against Doug. Doug won in a runoff, became Congressman Doug Collins in the 9th District here. Martha went on to work for Nathan Deal, Brian Kemp's, David Perdue. She went on to host her radio show, the Martha Zoller Show. And recently, she endorsed Rick Jackson. Okay, she came out and endorsed Rick Jackson for governor. And, I watched the service this morning, the homegoing service, which as Christians, Martha's been home for several days with her Lord and Savior. But I watched the Georgia Gang yesterday, and I thought it was a beautiful tribute what they did with the flowers in place of Martha's chair because she was scheduled to be on the show. So they did a good job yesterday morning on the Georgia Hour. And, I thought, how do I come here and make comments concerning Martha when in the last month, Martha, I was at odds with Martha. I've got some Substack articles where, I talk about her supporting Rick Jackson and it troubles me. It troubles me because I did make a comment and it really tore on me yesterday. I did make a comment saying that she was going to resign, and she did on that Friday. She was going to resign her or retire her radio show. And I made a comment saying, well, she's probably preparing to get a job in the Rick Jackson administration. And I did make that comment. And Martha and I were at odds over Rick Jackson in the last several weeks. But Martha was okay with that. She has been at odds with people. She has picked her candidate. I picked my candidate. We have had the same candidate. We've agreed on candidates. And it just really troubled me yesterday thinking about this, because when I first started Georgia politics, when I first started, this is 2012. What you see on the screen, this is my office. I used to have an office, and this is FYN Reports Election 2012. Go all the way back. It's 2026. So Martha was running for Congress, and she came over to my office. And on that particular day there, she spent about an hour and a half in my office talking. The lady that was assisting her at that time, her assistant at that time, working in the campaign, side by side, every move, you didn't see Martha, that you did not see Rebecca Yardley. Now, if you don't know Georgia politics, you may not know Rebecca Yardley, but we do. And Rebecca Yardley was with her that day in my office when you see this picture. And that's where I met Rebecca. And, this is where I wanted to start really studying Georgia politics. The second picture here, the next one here, I moderated 2 debates between her, that's myself, and Martha Zoller. And I moderated, this is 2012, all the way back in 2012. And I moderated 2 debates between her and Doug Collins. And so, I just want you to stop and think today, as we're going into 250 years and we're celebrating this country's birthday this Saturday. In fact, July 2nd is when we sent the King notification. We'll talk about that in a minute, of our independence. But anyhow, I was thinking this weekend, I met Rebecca Yardley at that time, and the people that Rebecca introduced me to and the people that Martha introduced me to throughout the years, just be open to someone you meet along life's journey and where they, where you travel and the people that you encounter. And I have to tell you, although Martha and I had our political, they were political. They were never personal. They were never ugly. They were never nasty. I was with Martha at an event not long ago and talked to her briefly, and it's been a couple months. But politically, she was all in for a good, I'll say it, political battle. She was all in for it. She never shied away. So I watched the service this morning. Just think about the people you meet in your life as you travel through your life, what they mean to you in your life. And I have to tell you, sitting here today talking Georgia politics and learning the inside of every single move, I appreciate in 2012 several hours I got to spend with Martha Zoller as I started really learning Georgia politics. So God bless her and her family. It was a beautiful service today. I stopped today and watched every minute of it. And God bless her family. And it was just a beautiful service. So we are going to talk politics, and there's a reason I'm going to talk about a certain race today, a certain race in Georgia, not the governor's race, not the Secretary of State, Lieutenant Governor, or the Senate. I'm going to talk about another race. But before we actually get too deep, we have the Supreme Court. And I have some books on the desk. I've got my American flag hat. I've got my Georgia hat. I got my cup. In fact, I will say this. I got to give a shout out. My Georgia hat, my American flag hat, and this cup. My son, he know he knows every time he turns around my Georgia cup. So, my son, thank you very much. Now, the Supreme Court landed a couple decisions here. They refused to hear. Okay, they refused to hear an appeal. Donald Trump appealed the Eugene Edwards? Is that her name? What's her name? The lady. The Supreme Court slapped Trump with $5 million bill over sex abuse case, right? Trump wanted an appeal on that to the Supreme Court, and they turned him down. So he will end up having to pay that. The second one, the Supreme Court, we'll get to this, all of them today. The second one, Donald Trump, President Donald Trump fired, right? Fired Lisa Cook, a governor. Now, the Federal Reserve has governors on their board. He fired Lisa Cook, and the Supreme Court said, you can't do that. You can't fire. The Supreme Court said you can't fire a Federal Reserve governor. So that's another ruling by the Supreme Court. But here's the one that has, when I say everybody up in arms, Trump's crusade to kill mail-in ballots crushed by Supreme Court in a blow to his election obsession. That's the headline. Supreme Court on Monday ruled that the states can continue counting mail-in ballots sent by and received within 5 days of Election Day, delivering a staggering blow to President Donald Trump on one of the his biggest fixations, they say. All right, now, when is Election Day? So the Supreme Court says, as long as it's postmarked, you get it 5 days later, you can count it as a state. Quite an interesting move by the Supreme Court this week. So I want to get into this. And like I said, I think this is very interesting because at my age, and I'm not leaving anytime soon, this was the official logo in 1976. In 1976. And I wanted to talk about this for a reason. The 70s, obviously, Jimmy Carter is president of the United States. And here is the official American Revolution bicentennial, 200 years. Now, I was there. 1976, I was there. So I will just share this with you. I'm a kid from the 70s. I don't like to pinpoint my exact dates, but I started into this world in the 60s, right? In the 60s. The core of my childhood and young adult life is the 70s. All right. And I stepped out into the adult world in the 80s with Ronald Reagan. So I was there in 1976, and I remember the celebration all too well. Now, at that time, Jimmy Carter's president of the United States. Things are not great on that day. On that day in 1976, they July 4th, 1976, they did not have quite the measuring of data, right, and the polling and indicators, right, and feelings, consumer confidence. But there was a lot of talk in 1976 that people were not in a patriotic mode. They're not in a patriotic mode. 1976. Jimmy Carter's president. Interest rates are enormous. Inflation's going up. It's not the most exciting time, right? Now, that being said, it's 50 years later. So on the 1976, a Jewish guy is mayor of New York City. We'll talk about that later. 1976. 1976, we had a major, and I'm watching all these celebrations, all of these celebrations. It's exciting out there. And this week, we're seeing all the social media. We didn't have that. The only thing you had back then was the local paper. The local paper came out, took pictures of your local community celebration of the bicentennial. We couldn't take 200 pictures and put them on social media, put them on Facebook. Couldn't do that. None of the above. Could not record videos and put them out back then. We didn't even have cell phones at this time. We're all dealing with those old landline phones. Once you were out of the house, you were tucked away from the rest of the world at the celebration. Nobody called you. Nobody texted you. Nothing. Just an enjoyable time. So one of the things in 1976 I want to remember today is my dad. There was a committee. Our town had the bicentennial celebration committee, and my dad was co-chair of that committee. And we had an enormous event in 1976. We had bands, we had an orchestra, we had a barbershop quartet. Everybody was red, white, and blue. It was just an amazing time. I'll never forget July 4th, 1976. It was a great time. Now, here's the logo 50 years later. So in 1976, I'm running around. I'm not thinking, okay, what have I accomplished? Where's the country at? Have I done my best? Right? Did I do everything I could? It's 50 years later. 250 years, right? Now, here's what I think. I'm not on my way out, as I said, but you know, I don't think we've done a great job. And I'm listening to all the media. They're discussing patriotism is down, and people they've done surveys, and people are not quite as interested in celebrating 250 years this country birthday. It's a real disappointment to hear people talk like that. But me personally, I don't know that we, in the last 50 years, if we've gone in the proper direction, and if my generation and older, if we did everything we needed to do to save the republic for which it stands. I don't know. And I do have a feeling the way things are going that, the republic's not long if we don't make a conscious effort now to get our grandchildren, our children, our grandchildren in the mind frame of saving the republic. And every time I hear Democrat socialist, and I hear young people, don't like capitalism, I think, you know what? We have to. My age, I'm going to talk to my age, older, we have to do what we can to talk to our grandchildren about saving the republic. It's 250. So I will tell you this, if you were there in 1976 and we're 250 years old, my 10-year-old and 9-year-old granddaughter and the rest of my grandchildren, they will be there for the tricentennial if, right? If you and I do what we need to do with the next generation. In when we were growing up as kids, I grew up in a neighborhood, and I'm going to move this along. I've told the story before. I grew up in a neighborhood with Jewish children. I grew up in a neighborhood with Black children, German, Yugoslavian, Italians. Now, I did not grow up with a lot of Hispanics. We did not have Hispanics coming into the country at that time. And I don't remember ever growing up with someone that was Muslim, Arab. Don't remember that. But I do know in the neighborhood where I grew up, we had, again, German kids, we had Yugoslavian, we had Italian, I had Black friends, Jewish friends, Catholic friends, you name it. And because there wasn't so much noise on the internet or so forth, we got along. I know people are going to argue and say, you were too young to know what was really going on out there, but no, we got along. So, moving right along, 250 years. I wanted to do this show today for a simple reason. And everybody is basically there. It's not that campaigns have stopped, but I will tell you this week, I look for campaigns not to be too harsh. I'm hoping that campaigns out there are not too harsh this week, because I say January 5th, which would be July 5th. Where do I get my dates here? July 5th, I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think politics is going to get pretty wow. But up until Saturday, I'm hoping that very little argument takes place. This is my favorite. These are my favorite books. And this is not a book club. I have a reason I'm going to go through this. Because you got to understand, in 1976, we went from Jimmy Carter to Ronald Reagan. This is the Reagan Diary, okay? This is the Reagan Diary, one of my favorite books. You can tell on the screen, the cover's a little scuffed up. I spent a lot of time in this. Ronald Reagan, I am a Reagan Republican. I am a Ronald Reagan Republican. I support my president, Donald J. Trump. I supported my president, Donald J. Trump, in 2016, 2020, and 2024. But I am a Ronald Reagan Republican. That's where I became of age to vote. Coming out of, remember, 1776, Ronald Reagan, first president I got a chance to vote for. Now, just a little side note on this great president, Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan is the only one U.S. president is known to have kept a personal journal every single day of his administration without missing a single entry. Ronald Reagan. The only perfect daily record, Ronald Reagan. Reagan filled 5 thick maroon leather-bound volumes during his 8 years in office. He wrote in them at the end of every day, regardless of the circumstances, even when he was hospitalized and recovering from the 1981 assassination attempt. Now, that's my one book. Now, talking about the Supreme Court, my second favorite book, I've got all kinds of books. Now, we're going somewhere with this, so stay with me. Enjoy the show. I hope you do. My second favorite book, I even got a coffee stain here, is Scalia's Court, Antonin Scalia. Antonin Scalia is my favorite jurist. Now, Ronald Reagan, I wanted to make sure I got it correct. Ronald Reagan appointed him in 1986. So it's 1976. I'm one of those 2 Utes out there. You remember 2 Utes? It's 1976. Coming into adult. Ronald Reagan's my president. Country's 200 years old. Antonin Scalia, 1976. Now, this is a tough one, and I'll tell you why. It's a legacy of landmark opinions and dissents. It takes a lot of brain to read this guy's work. I'm serious. It takes a lot of brain to read this guy's work, Antonin Scalia. And it's like a college course. So I have a lot of tabs in here where my favorite spots are that I like to read. Just a couple quick notes on my favorite jurist here. This is one of my favorite. I always said Scalia wanted his Constitution dead. His Constitution dead. Now we're going into 250 years. The Constitution is not a living document. It is dead. I mean, when they wrote it, it's not moving. A monument to greatest thinking of law and justice in the past 300 years, but it's not contemporary. Scalia said the Constitution is not a living document. It's dead. A monument to the greatest thinking of law and justice in the past 300 years, but is not contemporary, right? Thank God for that. So that's one of my favorite with Scalia. My second one is, because I love the Supreme Court. I love this country, 250 years. This is one of my favorites because I think I do it every day. On courage and conviction. Courage and conviction. If I have brought any message today, it is that have the courage to have your wisdom regarded as stupidity. I think it's just amazing. Have the courage to have your wisdom regarded as stupidity. And here is my third one, my favorite three of Antonin Scalia. Textualism. All right. Textualism means you are governed by the text. That's the only thing that is relevant to your decision. Not whether the outcome is desired, not whether legislative history says this or that, but the text of the statute. That's the only thing that's relevant to your decision is the text. And Antonin Scalia was a textualist. Now, the reason I'm doing this today, because it's 250 years. I have 6 grandchildren, and I've been thinking very seriously what I've got to sit down and talk to some of my older grandchildren, 10 and 9 right now, that can understand. And you may say, well, this is way too deep of a subject for these young kids. And if 20 years from now, these kids think and say, I remember my grandfather telling me these stories, then, it's all worth it. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the republic, not a democracy, we are going to have to look to our kids to save it. I mean, we're too busy fighting. We're too busy arguing. I mean, I see things on social media every single day that has what I consider no basis in the Constitution, no constitutional basis, right? No, it's just out there. And we argue from two sides all the time. And I really think for 250 years, you got to look at that logo. And you got to think, as we celebrate this week, who will restore? And I say this, not save the republic, restore the republic. And I'll get into that in a minute. We are going to talk Georgia politics. Now, this upsets me from time to time. I talk to people that want to have political debate. And listen, I can't quote these things. I study them all the time. But it really upsets me. I see young people all the time that get out of college, the university. They have these degrees, political science degrees, and they think they're real talking heads. And this is my third book. Now, I've got dozens of books. I think everybody should be able to say they're in the middle of a good book. You should always be able to say, hey, I'm in the middle of a good book. The Federalist Papers. And it's upsetting to me when I talk to people. This is another book. I've got it right here. It's on the screen. And this one's in a little bit of a rough shape, okay? Because it's got a lot of coffee stains. My books have some coffee stains. Now, this is not altered. I've had people say to me, and I do agree with this, the Federalist Papers written by the Founding Fathers in the King's English or whatever, they can be difficult to read. This right here, you pick this up. This is a great one. And I used to read the Federalist Papers and I would struggle. Difficult. And a friend of mine, referred me to this, I'm not going to say 15 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago, but it's called The Federalist Papers in Modern Language, Indexed for Today's Political Issues. And it's not altered. It doesn't change the the Federalist Papers. The actual original text is in here that you can read, but I'm very disappointed. And that these are things that schools, no matter what, all right, these are things that no matter what, you should not graduate without an understanding of the Federalist Papers. Period. Not a college course. Not a college course. Now, one of the biggest lies in 1976 that I was told, because I think I lived during the Great Lie. Well, there's been several, but I think I lived the Federalist Papers, okay? I think I lived during one of the greatest lies. And they told us in the 70s as kids, right? As we had Earth Day, we got Earth Day in the 70s, right? Whew. But we were told America was the great melting pot of the world. We were the great melting pot. And that was wrong. That was a lie. We should have never been what they said and called us the great melting pot. You see, anyone that comes to this, I get so tired of people quoting me the Statue of Liberty. Give me your poor, give me your poor, your whatever, whatever, whatever. I'm losing my train of thought there, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Give me the poor, the hungry. Send them over here. But see, everything and everyone that ever touched the soil in this country should have been required to assimilate according to not my views, not your views, not the views across town, not the mosque over here, not the synagogue over here, not the temple over here, not the First Baptist over here, Presbyterian over here, United Methodist over here, or the Lutheran over here, or the Catholic over there. No, they should have been required to assimilate based on the Constitution of the United States, the Federalist Papers, understanding the Republic, and the Declaration of Independence. Period. We should not have a kid that does not understand when you stand on the side, graduate from high school. I don't care if they came here when they were 6, if they were born here. I'm not interested in arguing birthright citizenship today, but I'm just saying, no matter who it is, when you come legally, everything should have been done requiring assimilating to our country and our great documents that created a republic. And we didn't do it. We didn't do it. That is a lie. The great melting pot is an absolute lie. All right? Now, I used to go to New York City to a little Chinatown, right? And I used to go to New York City to Little Italy, and I know some of the great cultural centers around the great cities. I mean, San Francisco, the Chinese, right? Just all over the country, different pockets. You go to Wisconsin, you go to Milwaukee, the immigrants that came to this country. You go to Chicago, the immigrants that came to this country, Texas. I mean, the list goes on. It's amazing. It's great. You go to West Virginia, the immigrants that came to this country to work in the coal mines. That's how this country was built. But at no time should we have ever allowed them to sell us in the 70s that we were the great melting pot and we were the ones that should accept them. And I say them that came to this country, where in fact they should have come to this country And one of the biggest things, the biggest letdown when we hear today where our children think of our country is not only did we not allow or demand whatever, to assimilate in this country, we deprogrammed our kids to our country. It was twofold. Twofold. People coming here across the border. I mean, when Ronald Reagan in 1986 signed the amnesty bill, I get it. I'm with you. People came across this country. The Somalis came across right from Canada. We imported Haitians when there's earthquakes around the world. We do all these things under the guise of humanitarian and refugees and taking them in and having the Statue of Liberty saying okay. If you want to tell me if you want to tell me that we are the country that we take in and we help people around the world that are struggling, that want freedom, why did we deprogram our children and not require the ones coming in to A, be legal, or B, assimilate to our country? Now, I want to go in here, the Federalist Papers. And I do want to do just a tad of history. It's 250 years. Now, the Declaration of Independence, and I have to tell you, you should walk up to people and nicely talk to them. But you see all these celebrations. And, you talk about citizenship. Save America Act. I hear that over and over. Save America Act. And I say this in all due respect. I look you in the eye in the camera. Why would we pass a Save America Act on the top of a bill when how many people, if you go to any of these celebrations, can't give you these simple truths about the country? I mean, you want to say you have to be a citizen to vote, but we don't do that in this country. We don't put a litmus test on voting. We don't do that. But you have to be a citizen to vote, and that's what will save the country. That'll do it. That'll save the country. Now, I get there's a lot more to it of what they're trying to do to protect our elections. I understand that. I get it. But maybe the fact that the citizens that do vote maybe they shouldn't be voting. They should understand what they're voting for. They should understand why they vote. When you go cast a vote, why? So the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson wrote the majority of the Declaration of Independence, right? But it went through several rounds of editing. Now, I've cropped out all of this, and what I like about AI is so I can stay focused. If you know me, I can jump all around, but it'll help me stay focused. But these are all things that I study all the time. I can tell AI what I want. It puts it in order. 1976, I never thought about that. But 50 years later, I have these computers going. That's pretty wild, right? Pretty wild. So it went through several rounds before the Declaration of Independence was finalized and signed. The editors, the committee of 5, there was 5 people that were on a committee to do the editing, and they would present it to the rest of the Continental Congress, right? The Second Continental Congress appointed to a specific group to draft the document known as the Committee of 5. Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, and Robert R. Livingston. After Jefferson wrote the first draft, Adams and Franklin were the first to edit it. Now, Jefferson got a little frustrated with some of their editing. That's an interesting thing you should study. Once the committee was satisfied, they presented the draft to the full Continental Congress. Now, when we started in this country with this independence and we declared we're going to be a country, we're getting rid of the king. No more king. Right? Was it King George? King George, right? No more. When we did that, we were governed under what we call a Continental Congress. The Declaration of Independence, we come along with our Constitution a little later. We'll talk about that, which acted as the final editing body. The Congress spent 2 days deliberating and revised the text, ultimately cutting out about a quarter of Jefferson's original draft. Now, Jefferson's original draft blamed the king for the slave trade, and they cut that out of the original draft of the Declaration of Independence. Now, and I do like AI because I can tell it exactly what I want. When it was adopted and signed. Now, the founding fathers thought July 2nd would be the day we all celebrate. They really did. Because that's the day it was voted on and ratified and set in, and that's the day we basically gave official notice to the king. We gave him the high sign. Sorry, I had to do that. We did one of these. Sorry. The timeline of the Declaration often surprises people as dates of approval and signing were weeks apart. Now, we had a lot of people that were not right there or could not get there to sign on that day. Adopt July 4th, 1776, the Continental Congress officially adopted the finalized text of the Declaration on this day, all right? The actual legal vote to separate from Great Britain, known as the Lee Resolution, passed 2 days earlier on July 2nd. So the resolution to separate from Great Britain passed on July 2nd. So Saturday's July 4th, actually Thursday, July 2nd, is when the resolution passed. It said, hey, we're out of here. Signed August 2nd, 1776, contrary to popular belief, the famous parchment document wasn't signed by all the delegates on the 4th of July. It took time for an official engrossed handwritten copy to be produced. The majority of the 56 delegates signed it on August 2nd. And some of them were absent and signed later. So that's the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence. All right. July 2nd, ratified. A king. Boom. We're out of here. That's when. Now, here's the thing, and the reason I wanted to do this on the Declaration of Independence is I wanted to do this for a simple reason. If you look where we're at now, you have to understand 1776 in this decision, this was not the easy year. This was not like, wow, that was great. That's done. Now what do? We go to war. They declare this, we go to war. Now we celebrate this, obviously Saturday, but it's showtime. It's time to go to war. I mean, we've told the king, we're out of here. The king is, sending boatloads of the redcoats over here as fast as they can. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no. Oh, I think the king said, hell no. Not going to do it. And I'm telling you, so the Declaration of Independence is an amazing document. It really is. And what a day of the founding fathers in that room. making this decision, knowing what comes next. How many things do you do knowing the difficulty comes next? And I don't want to say this is the easy part. This is the easy part. It's an amazing document. Brilliant men wrote this document. All right. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. All the above. But how many of us do things knowing what comes next? Right? So if we're going to save the republic, if we're going to restore the republic, and we're going to talk about that, we have to be ready for what comes next. Because these guys didn't just say it. They didn't just write it and go home. There's a lot of work to do now. This is where the work begins, this document. So let me say this. Now, here's where I get into the Federalist Papers, all right? Now, a little background, because it really upsets me when young people don't understand the Federalist Papers, because we're going to write a constitution. The Continental Congress, the what was it called? The hang tight. I didn't write it down, and I just drew a blank. And we're gonna make sure we have it on the program. Before the United States of America adopted the Constitution, we were governed by what document? I'm drawing a blank right now.
The Articles of Confederation.
Right.
That was our first governing.
Okay, so we had the Articles of Confederation. I didn't write that down. I drew a blank, but we were going to get it on here. So we have the Articles of Confederation. Not going to work, not going too deep. We're going to put a constitution together. We're going to go over that. Now, we put a constitution together. The people have to be aware what is in this constitution and how do we sell it to the people and how do we explain what this constitution is. So we have the Federalist Papers, and it's very disappointing to me that a lot of people don't even know what the Federalist Papers are. Assimilate. These are things, what I'm about to show you, these are things that every American should know. Every American. Even if you're a barista over at the coffee shop, right? The essay you're thinking of, the Federalist number 10, written by James Madison. Now, this is my favorite Federalist number 10 from James Madison, because you hear all the time we're saving the democracy, and I get so angry, and they're doing this on purpose. See, what I'm looking at is 1976, 50 years later, they want to turn us into a national democracy. There's a movement for a populist vote. Remember, populist vote. There's a movement right now for how many states to take the populist vote for their electors. We have a beautiful system. This system we have can work today, will work today. All we have to do is implement it, and people will be happy with it. It's an amazing system, and it works. So every time I hear democracy, now, it is arguably the most famous of the 85 Federalist Papers, and it directly addresses why the United States Constitution was designed to create a representative republic rather than a pure democracy. We are a representative. No one should go into this week without, studying this. And I'm going to try not, I don't even want to say the word bore you, but I'm trying not to, whatever you want to call it. The core problem are factions. Now think about today, everything I'm about to tell you with the Federalist Papers, think about what your founding fathers in 1776 250 years ago, signing the Declaration of Independence, getting together, um, getting together articles of the Confederate, getting together a constitution. Think about what they wanted to prevent. This, it blows your mind. The Madison primary concern in Federalist Number 10 was the danger of fractions, which he defined as groups of citizens, whether a majority or a minority, united in a common passion or interest that is harmful to the rights of others or to the community as a whole. This is why you're going to understand the difference and why we're not a democracy. And in the Constitution, we wanted to be a republic, a representative republic, because people naturally have different opinions, wealth, and interests. Madison argued that the fractions are an inescapable part of human nature. Since you cannot eliminate the causes of fractions without destroying liberty, the government must be designed to control their efforts. Democracy versus republic. Madison argued that the pure democracy is particularly defenseless against the dangers of majority fractions, which is exactly why the founders opted for a republic. You don't want California telling Georgia. You don't want New York telling West Virginia. We even set it up for where Rhode Island and New Jersey would not be, overwhelmed by the populace in California, Texas, Florida. The founding fathers got this right. Now, Madison argued the pure democracy versus republic, all right? Madison argued that the pure democracy is particularly defenseless against the dangers of majority fractions, which is exactly why the founders opted for a republic. The flaws in a pure democracy. In a direct democracy where citizens vote directly on every law, a majority fraction can quickly form dominant and oppress the minority. Madison wrote that such democracies have ever been speculous of turbulence. Sorry about that. A little tough one, a couple syllables. Of turbulence and contention, and have in general been short in the lives as they have been violent in their deaths, right? They have been short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. If you want to shorten the future of this country, if you don't want your grandchildren to be at the tricentennial, because I did a show one time where I said I was concerned, and I gave speeches that would my grandchildren be at a tricentennial in this country. And right now is a pivotal moment, 250 years in this country, of what will the next 50 years be. You see, I know what that 50, 1976, I know that. And I know if we continue to let them push the false premise that we are a democracy, what does Madison say in Federalist 10? Right? Has been violent in their deaths. The Republican solution, a Republican by contrast, relies on representation. The citizens elect a small body of delegates to administer the government. Now, this is where we're going to start getting into the things that have gone wrong and how perfect, when I say perfect, how great these documents are, especially our Constitution. And the reason, and a lot of people don't understand, what's the Federalist Papers? Well, I'll explain that in a minute. The reason a republic is superior, Madison outlined two primary reasons why a republic, specifically a large republic is the best defense against the tyranny of fractions. Now, think about all the fractions we have in this country. Think about that. As you read this, this is Madison, 1700s, writing these papers. Where we're at today. Refining public views. Elected representatives can act as a stabilizing filter. Madison hoped that these chosen leaders would possess the wisdom and patriotism to focus on the long-term public good rather than getting swept up in temporary popular passions. That's exactly where you're at today. Exactly where you're at today. See, Madison thought in Federalist number 10 that hopefully what could happen in this country if, hey, you got a republic if you can keep it, right? I don't remember the quote Ben Franklin made, right? It's a republic if you can keep it. But remember this, right? Rather than getting swept up in temporary popular passions, that's exactly where we're at. And he hoped that they would possess the wisdom and patriotism. Wisdom and patriotism. Have you seen our lawmakers lately? Have you seen members of Congress? Have you seen U.S. senators? I mean, even go as far as populism, our president of the United States, our executive branch. I mean, we have Supreme Court justices that are DEI hires, Ketanji Brown Jackson, because it's populist. They wanted a black woman. I mean, can you see exactly what we were hoping to prevent? Populist passions. You see, populist passions, it's written here. I will say this as my quote, could be the end of us. Now, as we go on, the advantage of size. This was in Madison's most revolutionary argument. A pure democracy requires a small population packed into a small area, making it very easy for a majority fraction to communicate and oppress others. A large republic, however, takes in a massive variety of distinct interest, regions, and classes. Because the country is so large and diverse, it becomes incredibly difficult for any single faction to gain a majority and coordinate a national effort to violate the rights of others. Now, we have that all over the country now. We have national efforts to violate your rights, your Bill of Rights, your individual freedoms. We have national efforts all over because they want to tell you you're a democracy. And they're trying to do that every single day. Now, what is very interesting here, a large republic, however, takes in a massive variety of distinct interests, regions, and classes because the country is so large and diverse. This right here in Federalist Paper number 10, why we are a republic, is why we should have required everyone to assimilate. Right here. You see, the founding fathers knew as this great land. I mean, you got 13 colonies, they become states. We've got Western expansion. We got the Louisiana Purchase. I mean, we're going west, young man. Get on the wagon trail. Boom, out west. There's gold out in them there hills, whatever. You know, they knew that. The founding fathers knew this was vast. that as soon as they knew, the founding fathers knew, as soon as word gets out, the king's not in charge. As soon as word gets out, we're free. As soon as word gets out that, hey, if you want to plant corn, you want to plant tobacco, don't know about wacky backy. As soon as word gets out back home around the world, they're going to be saying, wow, I want to go there. This is free. Are you telling me I can worship as I choose? I don't have to pay that tax to the king. All the above. You see, the founding fathers knew when they wrote the Constitution, this was going to be great. This was going to be exciting. This is going to be something that people all around the world would want to experience. We're the ones that screwed the damn thing up when we didn't pay attention, stay focused on the Constitution. We wouldn't have heard anybody. We could have had people come. We could have people come and work in our steel mills and our factories in Detroit making automobiles before we sent them somewhere else. We could have had people come and work in our coal mines, our copper mines, our fields in South Georgia, farmers. But right here, the founding fathers knew that we would be so diverse that this republic would be the only way. And we would have to require legal and assimilate. Right? You see, there's people out there that knew in the 70s when I was a kid, all right? I mean, I would go to school, and you did too. If you were in school in the 70s, we heard the great melting pot. Right? 1976, the great melting pot. It's what made us great, they would tell us. Our immigration, the people from around the world that built this great country, but they assimilate according to the Republic. And when did we lose the Republic for which it stands? Did we? So this right here, it really gets me worked up. I might be boring the hell out of you, but I just love this kind of stuff because I think we could get this. I mean, we can get this in the. Let's see. I think I just had that. Hold on. Now let me move on. I have a couple more things I want to do, and then I want to get into a race. I'm going to tie this together to something, I promise. If you'll stay with me, I'm going to talk about a race here in Georgia. I am. We're going to talk about a race here in Georgia. Okay, the United States is called a constitutional republic. So I wanted to make sure that we understood, because, a constitutional republic. All right. Now, we are a representative, but when the Constitution passed and we created the Constitution Republic, we're a constitutional republic. And the reason I wanted to make sure that, let me get this on the screen properly here. Yes. Now, in a constitutional republic, this is the critical safeguard. Now, I love our country. I'm patriotic. I'm patriotic, baby. I'm patriotic. Just boom, patriotic, right? Just say. And I do understand the Declaration of Independence, ratifying it, telling the king, go pound sand. But what comes next? And I have some good friends, and I'm going to put that out there, that I asked a guy, and I'm going to put it out there. I'm actually going to use his name. He didn't give me permission. I'm going to do it anyway, all right? I'm going to do it anyway. just because it hit me the right way. But I asked a guy one day, why do you keep doing this? I said, why do you keep doing this? I'm giving the answer in a minute. So a constitutional republic. Oh, my favorite branch is the Supreme Court. I love the executive powers. I love the legislative powers. I really like the Supreme Court. I really do. Scalia. I don't like things they do. I didn't like Roe v. Wade. I don't like a lot of the rulings. I'm not saying that, but studying the Supreme Court and Scalia, this is a critical safeguard. The government operates under a written document. We operate under, the whole country operates under a written document. Bottom line, the Constitution, period, which serves as the supreme law of the land. Rule of law. Now, I know this is where these things, I'm telling you right here, if you'll take everything I'm talking about today and go, damn, oh, excuse me, no bad words. I want children to watch. Darn, that applies over here. That applies over here. Rule of law. The Constitution dictates exactly how the government is structured, which powers it has, what powers it doesn't have. No one, not even the president or a massive majority in Congress, is above it. Shall we read that again? We are, the Constitution serves as the supreme law of the land. And the Constitution dictates exactly how the government is structured, what powers it has, and what powers it doesn't have. No one, not even the president or a massive majority in Congress, is above it. Protecting the minority. A pure republic could still be tyrannical, right? If 51% of voters elected representatives who then decided to oppress the other 49. The Constitution prevents this from being explicitly guaranteeing certain inalienable rights, like free speech, due process, in the Bill of Rights. Now, the Bill of Rights, right? What are the Bill of Rights? We'll get to that in a minute. That no majority can simply vote away. So we have our constitutional powers here that govern things, that give us the Bill of Rights, right? Our individual freedoms, that they can't go vote 51% and say you don't have anymore. That's why we fight for our freedom of speech. People say, right here in the Constitution, people will say, why do you fight so hard for freedom of speech? Because the founding fathers, writing, ratifying, and signing the Constitution, said the protection in the republic, the reason it's structured this way, is so 51% can't tell you you don't have your freedom of speech anymore. 51% can't tell you you don't have the right to bear arms anymore. That's the protections you have under the Constitution. If you don't fight those all the time, nonstop, people in bad places, bad people, in a populist democracy style, will try to vote and overturn your individual freedom covered under the Bill of Rights. People might say, why do we? This is what we should be learning. This is what we should be teaching our kids. Why do we fight for that Second Amendment? I am so tired of hearing that Second Amendment. Because we put safeguards in saying that 51% can't jump up and say you can't have your individual freedom, the Bill of Rights. I could go on and on. It's that important. The founding fathers knew this. You have to understand, this thing is amazing when you start breaking it down. They knew that. They knew it was going to grow. They knew everybody would want to come. They knew when people started coming, they'd say, oh no, we want you to be like this. We want you to be, we brought our values. No. We don't do this in our country. No, 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 no. We will not allow you to overvote or vote out the freedom in the Bill of Rights. It's that simple. No one, in my opinion, no one should ever go vote that doesn't understand this. I'm just saying. That's just me, all right? Now, a limited government. In the constitutional republic, the majority rules through its elected officials, but only within the strict boundaries set by the Constitution. That's what I was just telling you. Set boundaries of the Constitution. For example, even if 99% of American public and every member of Congress wanted to pass a law banning specific religion, they could not legally do so. The Constitution's First Amendment strictly forbids it. You see, that this document, I start reading the Federalist Papers, I read the Constitution, I read the Declaration of Independence, I read Scalia, I got Reagan over my court. I get to tears. I mean, I don't care what people think. I actually get to tears. I really do. Because it's right here. Now, even if 99%, the Constitution says no. It is what sets the boundaries. The only way to change those foundational rules is through the deliberately difficult process of amending the Constitution itself, which requires massive overhaul. Now, there's a lot of people that want to do a constitutional convention, a convention of the states. We'll get into that on a different day. But a lot of people want to do the convention of the states. And there's a reason the founding fathers made that difficult, all right? The difficult process of amending the Constitution. They didn't want, all right, look at what we got now. It said, wisdom and people elected to office that are patriots. They didn't want a day to come along like today, much like today, and make it easy to amend the Constitution. No, this document is so solid. If you want to amend it, it's going to be painstaking. And I love that about protecting your rights. You know, freedom, the founding fathers put so many guardrails for you and I to where people can't just take them away. That's why you have groups that really fight these things. Now, moving right along, right? Constitutional republic. So I promise we're going to get out of the history lesson, but I just got to 250 years. I'm watching this leftist MS Now this morning, and I'm watching all these lefties talk about people are not patriotic anymore. And the number one thing on surveys or that they find for people is they're concerned about our democracy. I mean, you could watch hours and hours and hours and hours, and you'll never hear one of these networks say constitutional republic. They'll never say republic, right? Now, a quick note on the Electoral College, and I won't go too deep into this because this gets a lot deeper, but I don't want to bore you. This is why we have an Electoral College. A little deeper is the most prominent and often most debated practical example of the United States functioning as a constitutional republic rather than a direct democracy. Every day, people are out there wanting to abolish the Electoral College, wanting to abolish it. The Founding Fathers put the Electoral College in place to stop a direct democracy and preserve a constitutional republic. So as you well know, right, we really don't go vote for president. We vote for an elector. that meets and casts a vote for your district, realistically. Georgia has 14 congressional districts, meaning it has 16 electors. 14, one for every congressional district, right? And 2 for the senators. 2 senators. Every state gets 2 senators and 2 electoral votes. So I think Delaware only has 1 representative. I think Delaware is like 1 state rep. So they only have 3 electoral votes. But this is for the Republic. And people want to get rid of it. It perfectly reflects the founders' 2 main goals: balancing the will of the majority with the rights of the minority, and recognizing the U.S. as a union of semi-sovereign states rather than single monolithic population. Now, as you well know, the federal government every day is trying to erase like every state line in America, and they want popular vote, popular rule. Exactly. That's what they want. But when he says semi-sovereign states, we have state rights. That's another day. We'll go through that. But the founding fathers never intended for Georgia to be Wisconsin, for New York to be, Florida, for Rhode Island to be New Jersey. List goes on. They never intended it. They intended for you to have your state, have semi-sovereignty, it's state rights. People choose where they want to live. They have this freedom. Federalism, a union of the states. Now, we have in the bill in the Federalist Papers, all right, there's the federalism and there's the anti-federalism. Anti-federalism. Now, if you go on and read the Federalist Papers, you will see where that there was talk. I don't want to get off target here, but there was talk in the Federalist Papers where it's very clear they didn't want us to end up being a country of different confederacies, where these 3 states came together, these 3 states, they didn't want that. There was a movement for that, and they didn't want it. 2 states said, you know what, we come together. New York at this time were a powerhouse. We come together, we could overpower everything else. Founding fathers, you see, they stayed their course. From the day of the Second Continental Congress, they stayed their course. It didn't get pushed around. And it's a beautiful, some people don't like the word perfect, amazing document. Now, federalism, the union of the states, okay? In a pure democracy, the entire country would be treated as one single voting pool. Now, I told you this earlier. We have a lot of states that have got what they call popular vote. They've passed it. They want the popular vote. They don't want, see, they want it like this. They want, if you get 51%, you've won the popular vote in the state. They want the popular vote. You understand, Donald Trump upset the apple cart. It's been a little while in this country since someone won the popular vote. But they've been pushing for that nationwide. Go look up all the states that are trying to get a referendum on popular vote, overtaking the Electoral College. Now, when I say save the republic for which it stands, you do need to understand there is absolutely no saving this republic. It's done. It's finished. It's over. And its death is only a matter of time if we go to popular vote. Absolutely. So, the Electoral College, however, treats the presidential election as 51 separate elections, right? Every state is assigned a specific number of electors, which we know that. for total congressional representation, 2 senators. We talked about that because every state gets 2 automatic Senate votes regardless of the size. The system mathematically amplifies the voting power of less popular states. This is deliberate, constitutionally comprised to ensure that smaller states would not be entirely ignored by presidential candidates in favor of densely popular states, areas. So now, let's go into a little more on the Federalist Papers with Madison, and we'll be out of this soon, I promise. Preventing tyranny over majority. Just as James Madison warned against the majority fractions of the Federalist Number 10, the Electoral College was designed to prevent a highly concentrated regional majority from dictating the presidency to the rest of the country. The popular vote vulnerability. In a direct national popular vote, a candidate could theoretically win the presidency by running up a massive vote totals, okay, in a few densely populated coastal cities, which completely ignoring the needs of rural interiors. Now, the Founding Fathers, this is amazing. I mean, we're on 250 years. I was there in 1976, 50 years later. How do we get to the next 50 years? How do we get it for our grandchildren? How do our grandchildren have a tricentennial as they're excited about their Constitution and their Republic? Or will this wither on the vine and die because all these liberal left wackos, I mean wackos, that try to tell you that they're trying to preserve your democracy, you're worried about your democracy, and they're preserving the Constitution. I'm showing you in black and white. They want California popular vote to overshadow Iowa. They want Michigan popular vote to overshadow Kansas. Absolutely. Wyoming, Montana, Idaho. I mean, you would end up with California, Texas, a little bit of Georgia, yes, Florida, New York, about 5 major spots dictating the entire country and making laws that everyone would have to live by. I mean, the Founding Fathers are just amazing. Are you not amazed with what they did? The Electoral College, and they look at you like we're aliens, not illegal. It's no fun being an illegal alien. I had to break out and do that, right? They look at us not like we're from Mars. I mean, I wish all the people that are wanting to read the alien files from another galaxy would look at this a little longer and protect it. But when we talk about the Constitution and we talk about the Republic and we talk about this, they look at us like we're aliens. Why, have you lost your mind? No, James Madison didn't lose his mind in Federalist Number 10. This is not Mambo number 5. The Electoral College solution to win the required 270 electoral votes, a candidate cannot rely on just one region or one demographic. The system forces candidates to build a broad national coalition to win a concurrent majority across the multiple district regions and states. Now, this is why we have to have campaign finance. We'll talk about that on a different day. Our politics has totally taken our country off the edge. It has. Our politics, elections, whether they're legal, not legal elections, whether the people really won or did not win. I mean, it's now, I hate to say it's now or never, but let's move along, right? Indirect election, the Republic future. A defining feature of the Republic is that citizens do not make decisions directly. They elect representatives. We're a representative government, Republic, to make decisions. technically, when Americans vote for presidential candidate in November, they are actually voting for that they are not actually voting for that person. They are voting for a slate of electors. Now we know that. Now this was, well, I don't want to go into 2020 today, all right? Representatives chosen by a political party, you know how that works. While today these electors almost universally vote in accordance with their state's popular vote, the original design was meant to act as a constitutional safety valve, a group of informed representatives who could theoretically step in if the public was swept up by a dangerously unqualified demagogue. Now, that being said, it was originally set up that your congressional seat, so the 9th district where I sat, voted for the president. They won this district. My congressional representative would have been bound to vote for me in the 9th district. And we changed that to winner takes all in these states. That no matter if a Democrat wins the 3rd district of Georgia, a Democrat district, or the 4th district of Georgia, a Democrat district, no matter what, even if the Republican wins, they get those delegates, although they lost that district. Winner take all. So those are some things that have changed. Now, the purpose of the Federalist Papers, I've talked about it a lot. The Federalist Papers were a series of 85 essays written between October 1787 and May of 1788. Now, keep this in mind. 87 and 88, 1787. So what did we do? 1776, right? We sent the king, yo, king, we're out of here. Remember, these founding fathers knew the next day what was out in front of them. They had to have a governing document. You can't just tell the king, go pound, right? Articles of the Confederacy was not working, or not everybody was happy with it. So the Federalist Papers, they come up with a Constitution. We'll get into this. They were authored by a trio of founding fathers, Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay. I think John Jay only wrote 5 of them. But anyhow, the purpose. What was the purpose? Now, back then, just think how bad our media has gotten. Now, listen to me. Our media today manipulates. Our media today is so deep state, corporate, corrupt media. What if our media today was needed to give you valuable information that you could trust and believe? But see, that's all we had back then. We had the Constitution written, but we had a group of people, we had to have it voted on, and we had to have the delegates from New York and other states to vote on the Constitution to ratify it, right? And there were some people that said no, especially New York. New York was the largest state at that time. So the Federalist Papers, well, let me get to that. The primary use of the Federalist Papers were to persuade the public. Now, I say persuade the public because I think of where we're at today, 250 years later. We don't do things in the media to persuade the public. There's things in the media to manipulate, to lie to the public, to try to control an outcome. Specifically, the voters of New York to ratify, approve the newly drafted United States Constitution. After the Constitutional Convention in the summer of 1787, the proposed Constitution was sent to the states for approval. So they had to send it to all the states. They had to prove it. It faced fierce opposition from critics known as anti-federalists, because we had people that were definitely against this Constitution. No. I'll tell you why they were against it in a minute. There had to be a deal made to get every state to ratify the Constitution. Who argued that the new central government would be too powerful and would threaten individual liberties? You got that there? So we have a group, we're going to get into that in a minute, who they are, that are anti-federalists, that did not want to see a strong federal government that stepped on your individual liberties, right? See, remember, that's what the Constitution sets out to do, is guarantee the 51% can't come along and take that's the Bill of Rights. The Federalist Papers serve as both a massive public relations campaign and a detailed defense, a physiological defense. Now, you know I stumble on those. No, come on, don't laugh. Defense of the Constitution. The essay broke down exactly how the new government would work, why a stronger federal system was necessary to keep the country from falling apart, and how the system of checks and balances would prevent a return to tyranny, right? So we've got a Declaration of Independence. We have a war. We need a constitution. I mean, what was this all for? Who's going to protect? I mean, why did my brother or why did my uncle or why did my dad get killed in the war? Why did my sister, my mom, why did our children die? Why did they starve? Why did they freeze to death? Why did all this stuff happen? What's going to protect us of not turning around and waking up one morning and right here in this new country that we've put together, that we're no different than that darn king across the water? What makes us different? So they know this. The founding fathers know this, and they know it has to be structured in a way that people will accept it and say, you know what, we didn't die for nothing. Make sure I have the right one here. The project was Hamilton's brainchild, but he quickly recruited Madison and Jay to help. The actual writing breakdown is generally accepted as Alexander Hamilton wrote the vast majority of essays, 51, covering executive branch, judiciary, taxation, and military. James Madison wrote 29 of the essays, focusing on the structure of the new government, federalism, and the history of republics. His contribution included the most famous essay, remember, Federalist number 10 and Federalist number 51. John Jay wrote 5, most focusing on foreign relations and the danger of foreign influence before he fell ill and had to step away from the project. Now, the timeline started, the first essay was published on October 27, 1787, barely a month after the Constitutional Convention ended. Pacing, the authors worked at a furious pace, sometimes publishing 3 or 4 new essays a week throughout the winter and spring. Newspaper publications wrapped up in the spring of 1788, and the entire collection was bound and published in 2-volume books simply called The Federalist. Today, the essays are considered, I'll get there in a minute. All right. Now, what they're doing is they're explaining the Constitution. Now, at this time, people get the newspaper in New York. And New York was the big holdout. That was the biggest holdout, were the delegates in New York not wanting to ratify. The state house in New York did not want to ratify the Constitution. They were anti-federalist. And so they published, the Federalist Papers explained what the Constitution was about, what it would do, and what it stood for. It was the best explanation we had. What is this document? And they published it so the people could read it. And when the people read it, they could tell their lawmakers in the Georgia, was it House of Commons or what? I mean, New York House of Commons, whatever they had back there, their state structure, say, hey, look, we want you to get on board with this. We're okay with it. That was the goal, is to sell it to the people. The people say, yes, we want to be a part of this union. Now, the end is, it says here, today the essays are considered the most important source, remember, for interpreting and understanding the original intent of the Constitution. So when people talk to you about the Constitution and they say, what was the intent? I love watching these roundtables, okay? All these roundtables. They do it all the time. Think about it. All these roundtables. Well, the intent in the Constitution was this. The intent. Well, see, the way the intent, but no one, when is the last time you heard someone at one of these think tanks that are saving the democracies, these leftist liberals that have all this higher learning, this education, these degrees? Well, I have 3 degrees. Yes, 3. I went to an Ivy League school. Right? Sorry about that. Let me shake myself back into reality here. But when's the last time you heard one of them say, look, Federalist paper number, boom, Federalist paper number, boom, interprets in the understanding of the original intent of the Constitution. Remember, a textualist, Scalia, go back to that. Constitution's dead. This is the interpretation. This is considered the most important source, the Federalist Papers, in interpreting and understanding the original intent of the Constitution. When's the last time you've heard that anywhere? Now, moving right along. Now, I'm almost done, I promise, because I'm gonna wrap this up and talk about this one particular race in Georgia and where we're at today, 50 years later. The Anti-Federalists were a diverse coalition of Americans who opposed the ratification of the 1787 Constitution. The Anti-Federalists. Now, this is great because we needed them. We did. We didn't need everybody to go along with it. We needed some pushback. This was a very developing time for the history of this country to protect us from where we sit today. While the Federalists were generally urban merchants, bankers, and elites who wanted a strong national economy, the Anti-Federalists drew heavy support from rural farmers, debtors, local politicians, and preferred power to remain close to home, right? However, they also had serious political heavyweights on their side, including prominent Revolutionary War figures. Patrick Henry, George Mason, and Samuel Adams were on the Anti-Federalist side. Now, what happened there, I absolutely love, like, I don't, this is not bragging. I know all this, so I tell AI what I want them to lay out for me so I can present it. Actually, these are the things I do like about AI. Their lasting legacy. While Anti-Federalists ultimately lost the battle to defeat the Constitution, that was their goal, they focused on a massive compromise. Are you ready for this? To secure the final votes needed for ratification in key states like Massachusetts, Virginia, where Thomas Jefferson was at, and New York, the Federalists had to strike a deal. They promised that the very first Congress would immediately draft a series of constitutional amendments protecting individual liberties. Did you hear me? Individual liberties, protecting them. The Anti-Federalists got us the Bill of Rights. They pushed back. Samuel Adams, Patrick Henry, James Madison. Was it James Madison or George Madison? Who was it? George Madison? Who was it? George Madison. George Madison. They pushed back. They promised that the first Congress, the very first one, would immediately draft a series of constitutional amendments protecting individual liberties. That promise to fulfill in 1791 with ratification of the Bill of Rights, the Anti-Federalists' greatest and most enduring victory. So see, it came from all over. Well, we got this amazing document, the Constitution. We got the Bill of Rights. These were great people. Now, keep saying I'm going to wrap this up. The Federalist Papers were primarily published in 3 New York City newspapers because the authors Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay were specifically trying to sway public opinion in New York. They focused their efforts on state and local press. Just think today if we had to use local press to try to explain something to the people. However, he did not make headlines recently by expressing that exact sentiment using different words in an interview. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I forgot where I'm at here. I keep clicking. Forgot where I'm at. Now, so we have talked about, sorry about that. We've talked about 1776. They knew what was coming. They knew what was next. You see, knowing what was next required them to have the courage for doing what they did. Knowing what was next. You see, they had to have the courage that day doing what they did, knowing what was next. I could say that over and over and over. You see, knowing what's next today, you have to have the courage. And we've talked about the independence, telling the king on July 2nd, ratifying, not anymore. Knowing what would happen, we'd go to war. Knowing what would happen is they would fight. Knowing there would be death. Knowing there would be tough days ahead of us. Knowing we had to put some kind of structure together so the people that came here didn't say, well, wait a minute, we just left that back home. Exactly, right? And then coming with that had to come the Articles of the Confederacy. We had to change those over to, we wanted a Constitution, and we have Federalist. We had the Federalist Papers. We had the Anti-Federalists. We've got the Bill of Rights. We've gone through that. We've gone through a republic, a representative republic. When we got a Constitution and it was ratified, then we are now a constitutional republic with safeguards to safeguard the Constitution for you and I. But this is where I'm going to take a different turn. He didn't say this quote, but Ron Paul, whether you like the guy or not, right? Ron Paul did an interview with Tucker Carlson a while back. And here's what Ron Paul said. And this is what really upset me that day. Because I'm going to tell you what it said to me, and I'm not going to give you my birth date or year. I won't even give it to the 18 people that call every day saying they're trying to complete my loan. We're trying to complete your loan. We just need a couple more pieces of information. Really? However, he did not make this quote because I asked to find it in an interview with Tucker Carlson, which aired on March 19, 2024. This struck me right here. Ron Paul explicitly referred to the JFK assassination as the day the government was permanently altered by the deep state. Now, you might not like Ron Paul. You might think he's a crackpot. You might think I I don't subscribe to what he said. But after what we just talked about, this just hit me when he said JFK's assassination is the day the government was permanently altered by the deep state. When discussing the assassination, Paul stated there was a coup on that day. He argued that November 22nd, 1963 marked the moment when secretive intelligence agencies, specifically the CIA, effectively took over the direction of the U.S. government, completely bypassing the constitutional republic, elected representatives, and the will of the voters. Wow, that's deep. That's deep. One more time. He argued that November 22nd, 1963. I will tell you this, we're not far off. That's all I'm giving you. Not giving you no more. But I wasn't born. JFK was assassinated. I was not born. 1963 marked the moment when secretive intelligence agencies, specifically the CIA, effectively took over the direction of the U.S. government, completely bypassing the constitutional republic, elected representatives, and the will of the voters. So while the precise words, "we lost the republic," that's what I say, isn't directly on record as verbatim quote from him, the underlying belief that the United States ceased to function as a true constitutional republic the day Kennedy was killed in a coup is a central part of the modern political commentary. Do you realize I have never, according to the statement, lived under the true republic that our founding fathers intended? That this was taken away from us. And this decline of where we're at now is the result of bad people. That's the nicest way I can put it. Now, let me show you something. We've talked and talked and talked, and I'm going to change directions. You got it? I sure hope you stay with this, because 2 weekends ago, Father's Day, I got this card. It says Grandpa. Not the greatest penmanship in the world, right? And it said, having a grandpa like you isn't just great, it's grantastic. Happy Father's Day. I love you. Ella, I love you. And Ella says, I wrote it in cursive. You see, I wrote it in cursive. These are my 2 grandchildren. I have 6, but these are my 2 grandchildren of Father's Day. Now, there's a reason I'm going for this, okay? Because in 1776, I was there. Now, I think it's going to be a stretch. I love him very much, him and my daughter, the 2 of them. But I think it's going to be a stretch to say my son, sorry, son, would be 3076, right? I mean, 1776, 2076, 3076, right? But generations down the road, where am I at here? Am I wrong as 250, right? Anyhow, it's not the time to do math right now. I apologize for this, but here's where I'm getting at. Sorry about my math. But I was wondering, did I do everything from 1776 in the last 50 years? You see, I'm going to share this is very personal, but that's my son in a baptistry, right? Is that way? It's baptistry, sorry. And that's my granddaughter being baptized. You see, 2 weeks ago on Father's Day, I sit there and I watched my son participate in baptizing his daughter, my granddaughter. It's 250 years. You see, in 1776, in 1876, in 1976, I don't know I'm going to be there on that day. I don't know I'm going to have a granddaughter. I don't even know I'm going to have a son at that time. But these are the things that happened in the last 50 years. So in the next 50 years, my granddaughter there that just got baptized, is she going to understand the Republic? Is someone going to teach her how to keep it? How to go forward? How to save it? How to restore it? Is our school system? All right. Right here, I put this together. This is the United States commemorate milestone past and future. And on the top is the 1976 logo. And on the bottom is the 250 years. 250 years. 50 years from now, will there be a republic? 50 years from now? And I just wanted to do that for no other reason today to say, you know what, when they start telling you that the republic, sorry about that, for which it stands, one nation under God, that patriotism is gone. Go back. I hope maybe you could go back and break down what we did today. I hope it's helpful. Celebrate this weekend. I get it. Get a watermelon. Go for it. Get a cantaloupe. Go for it. Get the hot dogs. Get the hamburger. Go to the lake. Don't forget that amazing document. Now,